It's WKRK Radio in Murphy, North Carolina, cable TV channel 25. We're on 105.5 FM. On the website, you can listen to us at country.am, and on your smartphones, a lot of folks are listening to us using Simple Radio app, the WKRK app, and TuneIn Radio app, and there's some other apps that also broadcast our station. And we appreciate everyone tuning in wherever you may be listening to us. And every Monday about this same time, we have the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office join us to tell us what's going on around the community. And we have Sheriff Palmer here with us today. Good morning.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Enjoying this warmer weather coming, and hopefully it'll get warmer and warmer.
I'm excited about warm weather. Although we did not have a lot of snow this winter time, and it really wasn't that cold, but we did have a lot of rain this winter.
We did. And I don't mind cold weather as long as it's snowing, but when it's through snowing, I'm ready for it to warm up.
Oh, yeah. Ready for summertime, all those activities outdoors. And
yeah. When I was younger, I really liked cold weather and really liked the cold weather events like skiing and sledding and all those kind of things. But I guess the older I get, the more and more I enjoy spring coming and the warm weather coming.
So you're good at snow skiing?
I wouldn't say good at it. I can do it and not fall.
I remember I tried it one time, and I did the bunny slope,
Right.
the introductory.
Where you hang on the rope and it pulls you up the mountain. And
I fell down hanging on that rope 6 times.
Right.
It just was not for me.
Well, my wife took me snow skiing when we first met. We went over to Cataloochee to ski, and I had never been on skis before. I'd water skied, but I'd never been on snow skis. And come down off that mountain, and just a couple of times I got the hang of it and was kind of going. And she said, man, at one time at the bottom of the hill, she said, man, you're flying down off those hills. She said, I don't understand how you learned to pick that up so quick. But what she didn't understand was I was just hanging on.
Just hanging on.
Yeah, I was just trying to stay up. I was just hoping there was nobody in front of me. But.
Oh, you're talking about warm weather, and that means well, one thing that a lot of folks are excited about is Hanging Dog Campground reopening.
Yes.
And you
May
said
1st.
You've been working in that area. What all is going on at Hanging Dog Campground right now?
Well, they've already went down and trimmed some of the campsites out and things of that nature. They're planning on opening B Loop and C Loop May 1st. And so they've already trimmed back some trees and done some basic stuff down there, getting the campsites ready. This week and the next weeks to come up until May 1st, we'll be going down and helping put gravel in the tent pads and in the different sites. We'll be mowing, weed eating, all those type of things. We're doing the minor repairs and things that needs to be done. The Forest Service is basically taking care of most of the repair things and stuff up to this point. So it's more of the cosmetic type things of getting things just ready for people to come in. And so people are getting excited about that, being able to go back down and camp again there at Hanging Dog. And
How long was it closed?
I really don't know. I really don't know what year they closed that. It's been a couple, though. And so people's kind of missed that element of it, been going down and fishing and stuff, but kind of missing the camping part.
Was there any maintenance that happened while it was closed, or did they just close it?
No, they just closed it and left it. But they did say that when they went down this past week and turned the water back on and things of that nature, that they had no major leaks or anything that they could find.
Right.
So everything has withstood pretty well. It's just fixing the little things, the little repairs that need to be done, the picnic tables and the campsite boundaries and all those kind of things. So the next few weeks is really going to be busy down there. We're going to be down, like I say, spreading gravel and fixing those tent sites and those RV sites. We'll be setting trash cans down there. The solid waste department is going to take some cans down and set so people can have access to that. Our Parks and Recreation department is pitching in, and they're going to go down and help with bathroom facilities and all those kind of things, keep those clean and keep them going. And then with the inmate work crews and along with the Park Service, we're going to try to maintain the mowing and the weed eating and all those type of things that need to be done down there. So it's a real concerted effort with all the kind of the county employees of going down and making sure that it's up and running and ready May 1st. And a lot of people's been concerned because they've been down there and said, man, don't look like a whole lot's been going on. Are you going to be ready? But we've got a plan, and barring any major catastrophes, any tornadoes coming through or anything like that, we'll be ready.
Well, very good. And what's the feedback you've received on the inmate work program so far?
Oh, it's been great. We've been using the inmates, like like people know, back in the winter of using firewood and things, busting wood and getting that ready for the winter time. But also this spring, we've been having them out on the roadways picking up trash, and a lot of people have seen our inmate work trailer out on the side of the road with the inmates picking up trash and things of that nature. Getting a lot of good feedback from that, seeing them out and working and doing things. And like this week, for example, with schools are closed and no kids around, then they'll have an opportunity if we can get time in there of going out and doing some things in the school systems, whether it's painting or weed eating, things that kind of that nature. So we're trying to utilize them on getting them spread out to help our different areas here in the county, and people are getting real good feedback about that. Though they're really liking seeing the inmates out working and doing things.
That's great. Whether a person is inmate or not inmate, I think just having a sense of purpose goes a long way, and just helping a person.
But one thing I do want to remind people, especially with the campground, with them going down working in the campground off and on throughout the summer, if you see them make work crews out and whether they're picking up trash on the road or on the campgrounds or different places, people are not allowed to approach them and not allowed to interact with them while they're down there. So if you have a loved one that's out picking up trash, you have a loved one that's out on the inmate work detail, you might can wave hi, as you pass by or whatever, but you can't have conversations with them, and you can't be in close proximity to them. So I want people to understand that, that when you see them out, you can't go up and shake their hand and things of that nature.
And are they clearly marked? Are they wearing orange jumpsuits?
Yes, they are. We'll have our inmate work trailer there. It clearly, with our sheriff's office vehicles, it clearly indicates, the sheriff's office inmate work crew. And they also have their jumpsuits and things on so people understand and know that they're inmates. There's no confusion about it.
All right. Very good. I understand there's been some more drug activity arrests in that field.
Yeah, we've our narcotics investigators have really been busy. They've really been hard at it, and a lot of people have asked about the incident out on Highway 60 Friday evening. We had several cars up there on a traffic stop. Basically, what had happened was one of our narcotics officers in doing surveillance of known drug activity and drug houses in Cherokee County was following a vehicle and noticed it made several different stops. Upon following that vehicle and just kind of observing it, noticed it made some erratic lane changes and some different things that brought the attention even further to the officer. Something may be wrong. The officer went ahead and effected a stop on that vehicle, and upon talking to the people that was in the vehicle, they gave consent to search. One of our other narcotics agents came by and ran his canine, Dingo. You may have saw it in the paper here recently. Ran Dingo around the car. The dog alerted on the car. A search ensued and found trafficking amounts of methamphetamine within the vehicle in a hidden compartment. So, even that's a great utilization of the canine unit and a great utilization of those canines. If it hadn't been for the canine indicating on where the drugs were located in the car, it may have been something that might have been missed just simply by searching it. So we were able to recover trafficking amounts of methamphetamine out of the car, and other paraphernalia and other scales and other things that indicate distribution.
So it sounds like people go to great lengths if they're transporting illegal drugs to conceal those. Right.
And also, on these traffic stops and stuff, for instance, we had a traffic stop where the trunk was being searched, and what appeared to be a pipe bomb. It was black and long and had wires coming out of it. And when the officer talked to the person about this and asked them what this was in the trunk, they indicated to the officer that it was harmless, that it's what they used to smuggle their drugs with. They tied up under the car. We see all kind of things like that. It's not necessarily just what's inside that vehicle. People hide drugs under the hood and the air intakes. They have hidden devices that they can hang up under their cars, ties up under it, compartments within the car itself. If you look at your car at home, if you really inspect it real good, your cup holders come out, your things pop apart. So there's all kind of cracks and crevices and spaces that you can hide things in vehicles. So when officers search vehicles and utilization of canine units, sometimes it can be a tedious task, and sometimes it may take a while to search a vehicle. And there's even been times where you have to go back, once vehicles have been impounded, actually having to go back do a more thorough search, and then sometimes you find more drugs in the car that you missed the first time. So it's kind of a thing where it's not as just simple as looking in the ashtray and there being drugs in the ashtray a lot of times, especially when you have big trafficking amounts of drugs. Most of the time those things are in hidden compartments or in places where you're not readily going to see it.
Right. you said that they had given consent to search,
Uh-huh.
and with them knowing that they had drugs
Right.
in the car, do you have a problem with people cooperating with that consent to search? I mean, what are their legal rights?
Sometimes, everyone has a right to refuse a search. If an officer pulls you over and they don't have legal justification to search your vehicle,
Right.
You can refuse to let them search it. Officers ask all the time, do you mind if I search? Do you care if I look here? You have the right to say no, if you don't want them to. So you can refuse that search. And also you can consent to a search, but then you can withdraw that consent at any time. So
Okay.
if you've got drugs in the vehicle, or even if you don't have drugs in the vehicle, and you say, yeah, go ahead and search it, and they're looking through your vehicle and tearing stuff apart, and you say, you know what, I'm tired of this, I'm going to leave, I'm withdrawing my consent, you can do that
Right.
also. But what happens a lot of times is, like, for example, with the canine unit, once a person gives consent to search a vehicle, and maybe the dog's running in the car, run through the car, and the dog alerts on it, then you can't withdraw consent at that point, because we have other reasons to search the car. We have the dog indication,
Right.
So it's not based upon your consent to search; it's based upon the indication of the dog at that point. So there's other ways that officers can search cars without your consent. If they have reasonable suspicion, probable cause to search cars, search warrants. There's a lot of different ways we can search vehicles and property without the person's consent. But there's legal ways of doing that, and there's processes you have to go through to do those things. For example, if I've got a reliable informant that tells me that at 3 o'clock today there's a black BMW going to come through, and it's got 2 white males in it, and they've got a hidden compartment in the car, and the drugs are under the back seat, that's pretty specific.
Right.
And so if I'm sitting at that particular place at 3 o'clock and that black vehicle comes through and 2 white males in that car, that gives me reasonable suspicion to stop the vehicle. And then if that person that told me that, if they're reliable, if they've told me truth in the past, then that gives me probable cause to search that vehicle, because at the time and place and destination that they reported it would be.
Right.
So in those situations, you can actually search without the person's consent. And so it can be very tedious sometimes on trying to figure out where your justification lies and where it doesn't. But we always try to err on the side of caution and not violate people's rights. And there's been many times in my career, many times in the officers that are out there, that they've asked for consent and given consent, and the person's withdrawn that consent, and we let them go because we have no other legal justification to keep them. So there may be times in your gut that there's something in that car, something happening. But if they refuse that consent, or you don't have legal justification, then you have no recourse except just to let them go.
Do you find that people get treated, if they're pulled over or they're suspect, if they cooperate with the law enforcement compared if they're combative?
Yeah, and that's one thing about it too. People don't realize this sometimes, but if you cooperate with law enforcement from the onset, if for example, there have been many people that I've walked to a vehicle and suspected there were drugs in it, asked them if they had drugs, and if they did, just go ahead and give them to me. A lot of times people reach in the glove compartment, pull it out, and hand it to you. Here it is. You got me.
At some level,
Yeah.
that cooperation is gaining your trust.
It is. And the thing about it is for those people who do that, and those people that cooperate, when it comes court time, they may still get charged, but when it comes court time, sentences are very lenient. Most of the time they don't go to jail unless it's just huge amounts of stuff, But officers are willing to go to court and testify as to the cooperation of the person and how they helped from the onset. And so if you're in a situation that you're in the wrong, it's better to cooperate. It always works out better for you in the end to go ahead and cooperate.
All right. Last week we had a press release about, and it got a lot of comments on our Facebook page about a man who had been charged with kidnapping some young ladies. What can you tell us about that situation?
Well, I think that is still an ongoing investigation, and there's not a whole lot more I can tell more than the press release on that. But a lot of those things deal with age restrictions.
Right.
And it's not necessarily what we would call snatching somebody up and running off with them, like at Walmart, grabbing a child and running out the door with it. That a lot of those things are not what happens when you have kidnapping. What happens a lot of times is when you have people under the age of 16 who willingly goes with other people, but they're not old enough to consent. If you have children under the age of 16, they can't give consent. as to where they're going to go or what they're going to do or who they're going to go with. And especially when it comes to sexual escapades and things of that nature, when they're under the age of 16, they can't give consent for that to happen. So, that's where a lot of these statutory rape charges, that's where a lot of these kidnapping charges, felonious restraint, those kind of things. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, those things are not doing things to people against their will. It's just they're so young they can't consent to it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of gray area there. Well, not really gray area, but a lot of people don't understand the laws and the ages involved. But I know I've read several comments that a boyfriend and a girlfriend will be dating, and then the boyfriend is a couple of years older,
right?
And then he gets marked as a sex offender for an entire life when maybe someone in the family doesn't like that relationship.
And some of that's changed. That's kind of the way it was when the sex offender laws first came out. But some of that has changed now. You do have age restrictions. If a child's 13, 14, the perpetrator has to be more than, I think it's 3 years older. It's either 2 or 3. I wish Roger was here. He could spout all this stuff off and tell you from the top of his head, because he does that every day. But they have to be a certain age older than that victim before they can be charged. But one of the things that's changed in that sex offender law is that it's not an automatic life registry now. Sometimes it could be a 10-year registration. Sometimes it could be a 5-year registration. So there's limits to some of that stuff now. The judges do have some discretion in that now as far as their how long they have to be on the registry.
Right.
So used to, and I do know situations where in the past, when the sex offender laws first started, is that it was a lifetime registry, and that you had that situation where you had teenage relationships, for example, and then the person got put on the sex offender registry on a lifetime or a 30-year or something like that, But now with the law changes, there's a little bit more discretion on that, and they're not on there automatically for life anymore.
And kids get interested in relationships a lot younger now than, say, when we were in school. I've noticed that. I don't know if it's what's the contributing factor, whether it's social media, whether it's the TV programming we have nowadays.
Well, I think social media plays a big part in that. And as a matter of fact, I just revamped and rechanged my social media policy at the sheriff's office and put an updated policy out about that, because social media does dominate our lives. And social media, we've talked about this before, even from the news industry. A lot of people get their news from social media.
Right.
They don't get it from Fox or CNN or ABC or NBC anymore. They go to Facebook, and whatever they read on Facebook, that's their news. And so since social media dominates people's lives and plays a big part in people's lives, I think that's a big part on why we're seeing these changes in the younger people, and they're having more interactions with other people. They're having more interactions with older people. But not only that, but even the phone industry and even the, Android and Apple and these companies, they even, I don't say provide, but they allow apps to be sold on their Play stores and on their, what's the Apple? Where do they purchase?
Let's see, iTunes maybe?
Yeah, iTunes and those kind of things. They allow these apps to be sold on there. That hides stuff. In other words, there's some apps that's a calculator, and you put certain numbers in it, and it changes from a calculator to a social media site. And that's where you can hide things. That's where if your parents get your phone and look through it, they say, oh, it's a calculator. But really, it's a social media site.
Right.
There's other things that's like that you can download, weather apps, you can download all kind of different things, but you put certain codes in them in certain ways, and it turns it in to like where you can transmit pictures, where you can transmit information, where you can carry on conversations. And so it's a scary thing out there, because a lot of parents that even are trying to be good parents and are trying to look at their kids' phones and trying to keep abreast of what their kids are doing, a lot of times these kids are still hiding things from them and are still doing things that the parents don't know about. And so, with the social media out there and being able to hide things and do things without any supervision or restrictions, I think that's what's causing those ages to get younger and younger. Right. And I think that's what's causing kids to be more exposed to adult life at an earlier age.
There are so many ways for people to connect to anyone with a smartphone, whether it's a kid or an adult. But back in our days, you would, call, the phone would be busy, you'd hang up and try to call again to see if you can reach your friend or whatever. But now everything is with the thumbs or?
Well, you got text messaging, you got messengers, you've got your iMessage, you've got your Android phones have all kind of those apps like we talked about downloading, where you have different messenger apps, Facebook Messenger. There's a lot of different ways of just getting that message to somebody. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said in the past, when you called a phone, it was a busy signal and you didn't get your message there. You had to wait and call back later to get your message. Mm-hmm. Now, you can just shoot that text message, and whenever they're free, they can look at it and get the message.
And now we live in a day where people from states away will be contacting children,
right,
and arranging meetings for inappropriate behavior,
right,
and luckily, a lot of those get caught.
They do. We've done several of those here in Cherokee County, where people come to the park to meet a victim, and it's really the police sitting there waiting on them when they get there. We've made a few of those arrests like that. We try not to entice people to come here, even though it's very easy to do, and we could do it all day, every day. A lot of these people need to be in jail. They need to be caught, but we don't want to bring people from Kentucky to Cherokee County just to arrest them, or we want to bring people from Alabama here. We don't want to entice people to come to Murphy, North Carolina, because they're sex offenders, and because we want sex offenders in Murphy. So we have to be very careful about that. We have to be very careful about how we do those investigations and those type of things. But we do, on the local end, we do get a lot of local people from surrounding counties and different places that do open up those chat sites and do try to entice children. And so those are the people that we kind of concentrate on and that we try to make a concerted effort for. I know that Roger, a lot of times when he's doing these investigations, if he picks up those people from Kentucky or Alabama or Tennessee or wherever it may be, it could be from California, but wherever he picks up these people, instead of trying to entice them here, he may call the local jurisdiction wherever these people originated from and say, hey, you've got a person here stuck with kids, and let that jurisdiction take it over. So there are ways of still getting them in jail, of still getting the investigation done, but not getting them to come to Murphy.
And now there are apps out there that actually use GPS coordinates there,
right,
that are designed to be just for meeting for physical contact with someone, and it will tell you how far people are away from you.
Right.
And there's websites devoted to that as well. So
it's very scary
it really
what's out there. It's really scary, because I know that a couple different times of doing just little social experiments there at the sheriff's office of seeing how this kind of works. I know that they can go in and make a fake profile and put it out basically of a man seeking a boy, or older person seeking a younger person. Or they can even pose as a younger person seeking an older person.
Right.
And so when they do that, it's very scary that how quickly people respond to that. You would think, well, it'll take a while before somebody will start responding, but almost instantaneously, when they put those fake profiles out, it's just the computer's just dinging with people coming in right and left trying to start conversations.
Right.
And it's really scary of what's going on out there, that there are predators that are sitting around just waiting for their next victim, just trying to find somebody.
And kids may not understand what's going on at that point. They may not be mature enough to realize that that's the situation that's going on.
Well, the thing about the social media and the Facebook pages and all that kind of stuff, too, is that you don't know who you're talking to on the other end. You don't know if it's a real profile or a fake profile. Unless it's somebody that you know personally, you really don't know who they are. You can put anybody's picture on your profile.
Right.
You can put whatever age you want to put there. You can put whatever location you want to put on it. So, you don't really know who that person is. And a lot of times these young people, they invite friends, they put friends on their pages, they start up these conversations, and they think they're talking to a 17-year-old out here somewhere when it's really a 47-year-old pedophile out in some different place. And so they need to be very, very careful about that, about what information you put out on the internet.
What's some of the best ways that parents can protect their kids from this kind of activity?
Well, like I say, there's nothing you can do that's 100% foolproof. There's nothing for that. But I know, like for my children, growing up, we always required passwords, to know what the passwords were, to know what kind of apps were on your phone. Every app that was there, everything that required a password, my wife and I had access to, and there was nothing in common, especially when my girls growing up. There's nothing uncommon for Cindy to come in from work and be cooking supper and say, okay, everybody put your phones in the basket. Mm-hmm. And everybody bring their phones and put them in the basket. And then after we eat supper, she'd go through the phones for the night, and just checking messages, just checking what had been erased, mm-hmm. what was still there, checking the apps, checking those kind of different things. And so I think as a parent, you need to be proactive in that. Like I say, it's not foolproof. They can still get stuff over mm-hmm. on you. They can still hide things. But I think as far as being parents and trying to fight this thing, I think it's important that your children know that you care. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that your children know that you are going to ask questions, that you're right. going to look. You're going to want to know what friends they're hanging out with. You're going to want to know where they've been, mm-hmm. kind of thing. And so I think when parents have that kind of attitude, and not from being hateful or mean, but from a concerning point, right. then I think that the kids are more apt to communicate with the parent and tell the parent things that are going on.
It's probably very important for just the parent and the child to have an open dialogue and be able to trust each other and to be able to talk about things, right. even if they're embarrassing things or whatever, just to be able to talk to each other.
Well, I know, like especially my daughter, Leah, I know that, even when she was 13, 14, mm-hmm. Really starting to get into thinking about dating and getting into the boyfriend thing and the phones and all the different apps and stuff, I know that even then, I would relate to her stories about right. when I grew up and mistakes that I had made and things that I had done that I shouldn't have done. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you do that and you bring it from your own personal standpoint, then I think they understand that you care about them and that you're trying to keep them from making the same mistakes that you had made. And so I think that that's a good way of opening that dialogue up to the kids, because I think that when you stand there and you just point fingers and accuse and scream and yell and those mm-hmm. kind of things, it's kind of they automatically put up that barrier. But I think when you bring it from your personal standpoint mm-hmm. of this is what I've been through, this is what I've done, these are the mistakes that I've made, right. and you don't even say anything about what they've done. You're just talking about what you did. Mm-hmm. Then they can relate to that and they can understand that.
They can respect that.
And they respect that. And then when they're faced with those situations, they can use some of the things that you had told them about your life to apply to their situations. And I think that's a good way of opening that communication up, is just being honest and being personal and being real about what mm-hmm. you've done as when you were young.
Right. All right. Well, I see our time has flown by today. What else would you like to talk about before we close out the show?
I had a whole list of things, and I don't even remember what it was now.
We just start talking, and we just run with it.
The one thing I do want to say is we are taking applications for a volunteer program, mm-hmm. and we are taking applications also for our Citizens Law Enforcement Academy that we're going to have. It's going to be our first ever Citizens Law Enforcement Academy. It's going to be a 10-week program. Mm-hmm. It's going to be one night a week for 10 weeks. And anybody in the community that wants to sign up for that and be a part of that can do it. It's going to start off with the first night. I will teach the first night about it. It'll be about the history of the sheriff's office, the history of Cherokee County, the history of sheriffs in general, what the constitutional authority of a sheriff is, and why we have sheriffs. And it goes back. A lot of people don't realize this, but it goes back all the way to the book of Daniel in the Bible. If you look in Daniel, it talks about the calling the sheriffs together to get the people. So we'll talk about that, and then from week to week after that, we'll talk about different aspects of the sheriff's office, why the sheriff's office does what it does, how it operates, different aspects within that office. And so anybody in the community that would like to take part in that, drop on by the sheriff's office, pick up an application. It's called the CLEA program, CLEA, Citizens Law Enforcement Academy. Come by and pick up an application for that, fill it out. We'll get our class scheduled, and then I'm looking real forward to that.
All right. How will these people be used after they take the course?
If they want to volunteer once mm-hmm. they take the course, there's different ways. If you got past law enforcement experience, we may use them as far as helping with investigators and patrol mm-hmm. and things of that nature, whether it's funeral escorts or whether it's doing neighborhood canvassing and things of that nature. If they have no law enforcement experience and it's just a citizen that just wants to help out, they know nothing about law enforcement, have no history, have no certifications, then those people can be utilized more there at the office mm-hmm. as far as helping with maybe the concealed weapons permit process or the purchase permit process, different civil process, stuff right around the office they can do. And so we're getting real anxious about getting this thing off the ground and getting it running where people can come and help and do different things.
I know we have a lot of listeners out there of different ages, from very young to very old, and a lot of retired folks that are looking because they realize the importance of giving back to their community. So this is one of the great ways they can do that.
And we want to, the reason we're doing this, in case people are wondering, the reason that we're wanting to do this program is because we want to get more involved with the community. We want the community to be involved with the office. We want the office to be involved with the community. And we want people to understand law enforcement and understand the sheriff's office and the way it operates and the way it works. So that because you hear all kind of things. You hear all kind of things in the community. Some things are true, some things are not true. But we want you to be a part of that office to where you understand what's happening at the office and you understand why we spend our money the way we do and the budgets that are involved and things of that nature. So when you hear these rumors out on the street or you hear people talking, you can either set them straight or you can understand that what they don't know what they're talking about a lot of times. And so we just want to get that involvement together, and we want people to be proud of the sheriff's office. We want people to feel a part of the sheriff's office. We want to be involved with the sheriff's office, but we also want to get to know our community members out there also, so that when we respond to things and we go to these places, that we've got a relationship with the community, and it's not a more of a city type atmosphere, but it's more of a rural community type atmosphere.
All right. Speaking about public service, we do want to send our respects. Yesterday we posted on our Facebook about the fire alarm or the tornado alarm going off in downtown Murphy, and that was to pay respects to someone who had spent his life, Steve Bias, with community service, and that was part of the procession, I understand.
I had known Steve many years and had worked with him both in the school system and through the emergency services. Been on a lot of different calls with Steve and things of that nature, and it was a shock to the community, a shock to his family, and our heartfelt prayers do go out to the family and do especially to his wife and his children. And we know that any time that there's a loss in a family, it's hard, but when it's unexpected and the person's relatively young, it makes it that much harder.
Yes. All right, Sheriff, thank you very much. We'll do this again next week, same time, same place, right here on WKRK. Our time is 11:35. It's WKRK Murphy.